What is the greatest Pixar movie of all time? I think many people would say along the lines of Ratatouille, The Incredibles, Big Hero 6, and Cars, which are all heavy hitters, but there's one that stands above the rest of them, and that would have to be no other than So, to be completely honest, the first watch for me as a kid was so boring. What would be interesting about a music teacher's life? But as I grew up and I started to mature, the topics of the movie so really hit home for me and gave me a deeper meaning of life. And that's what we're covering today. So, peep this and lock in. So we start in music class where we see the main character, Joe Gardner, teaching a pretty uninterested music class. You can tell within the first couple seconds how invested Joe Gardner is in music. He has a genuine love for it and a passion and talent. Now we see him get pulled aside to be told that now he's not going to just be a part-time music teacher, but he's now going to be a full-time music teacher. Now we pan off to the mother's shop, where he tells his mother that he was offered a full-time job, and not going to lie, being a 46-year-old ass man talking about your first full-time job is kinda crazy, but that's beside the point. But then we see he gets a call from his former student, Curly, telling him that Dorothea Williams needs a pianist, and my boy hauls ass. Now, Dorothea Williams was a straight asshole. She was not the kind of person that would give a lot of people chances, so this was Joe's time to shine. Then we see Dorothea Williams spontaneously start playing, and Joe, with no prior knowledge of what they are playing, we see my man Joe just straight cook. I mean, he gets lost in it. Everything around him starts to disappear and a light blue aura covers him, showing how immersed he is in the music. And rightfully so, he earns his spot to play for Dorothea Williams' quartet. Now this man was so happy he starts to just blatantly put his life on the line. And then we see him on the phone, and he takes one step that will change his life, falling down a manhole and dying. Then we see Joe getting pulled into a bright light, being the great beyond. Now by no means does Joe Gardner want to die. He has now accomplished his dream and now he has to die. He won't accept it. And somehow he manages to jump out the line and he ends up in a place called the Great Before, or the U Seminar, where souls are not yet souls, where this is the place where they get built personalities, sparks, or purposes. Now Joe sees an exit through this hole which the souls jump through to reach Earth. So he tries to jump back to Earth, but he can't reach it, getting continuously pulled back. Now Jerry finds him again and leads him to the U Seminar. Now Terry is technically the movie's villain, but she really doesn't do too much, so we won't really talk about her. She does notice that the count is off, that the single soul is Gardner, which is basically what she does the whole movie, is just chase him, and we get a couple infamous memes. Now in the U Seminar, it basically is where historical figures, aka mentors, come to give sparks to souls, which makes them able to go to Earth with the Earth Pass. And Joe has a great plan. Make a soul have a spark, take that shit, and use it for himself. Now we see Joe get introduced as some random child psychologist who won a Nobel Peace Prize, and he has the honor of teaching Soul 22. Soul 22 has been mentored by many notable figures, including Copernicus, Mother Teresa, Muhammad Ali, Gandhi, etc. She is such a pain in the ass that almost every one of her mentors hated her. Now we see Joe explaining that he's not Bjorn, and Soul 22 doesn't believe him until he puts his hand on this thing that shows his life. Joe is walking through his life. He's seeing the embarrassing pasts when he first started to like music, and I mean a lot of failure. Slowly he starts to realize that his life was meaningless. Now we see that he is determined to get the Earth Pass, and by any means. All he has to do is get Soul 22 to have a moment where she has a spark. And they damn near do everything, but she still doesn't have a spark. Soul 22 buys Joe a little bit more time, and then she leads him to the zone, a place between the spiritual and reality where we meet Moonwind. We see Moonwind catching a lost soul, which are human souls consumed by anxiety, obsession, and depression. and Moonwind will help Joe get back to his body. Now they do this ritual where Joe has to focus and meditate and find his body on Earth, and he does. But in typical fashion in these types of movies, he rushes the ritual, jumps in early, and also pushes in Soul 22. Instead of waking up in his human body, he wakes up on a cat that was on his lap. Now we see this really funny scene where Soul 22 and Joe are trying to explain the situation, but they just sound crazy. But Joe has to go and find Moonwind so that he can help them figure out how to get his body back. But 22 is new to this human thing and is struggling just to do normal basic things like walk. But they get to the lobby, and once 22 leaves the building, she is immersed to New York City, and it's a lot for her to handle. So she ends up bawling in the corner, but Joe cheers her up by getting her some New York City style pizza, not only helping her with her hunger, but also giving her a new love for food. Then they find Moonwind spinning a sign, and he tells them that they have to wait until there's another thin spot between reality and the astral plane, which the next time would be 6:30. So Joe has to get his body to his house, and when he was hailing for a cab, no other than Dorothea Williams and Curly walk out and see him with grease on his hospital gown and a cat on his shoulder, frantically entering a cab. Now we see them back at Joe Gardner's home, and he is freaking out. Then Curly calls him, saying that someone else got the gig. But Curly says that if he comes early in a great suit, he could maybe, just maybe, perform. Right before they start getting ready, Connie, a student of Joe, comes to the front door and says that she wants to quit music. And 22 obviously agrees with her, saying that she should quit jazz and that jazz is meaningless. But then we see Connie play. We see her play, and she was really in the zone, showing that she has a real passion for the trombone that she really didn't want to quit. And this stumps 22. But then we see 22 doing the daily routine that we all definitely do, like showering, brushing our teeth, and putting on clothes. Now what happens next is kind of stupid to me, but Joe as a cat tries to line himself up and fails. Then he has to go to the barbershop. And why didn't he just do that in the first place? Why did he not just go to the barbershop? Walking into the barbershop, we see the traditional line, but his shit is fucked up, so he must get his shit lined up. Then we see 22 talking about her life, and it takes the interest of many people in the barbershop, with everyone paying attention to what she's saying about life and how she feels about purpose. And then we see the barber's story, and how he was originally planning to be a veterinarian, and then he ends up becoming a barber because of his daughter falling sick, and how barber school is a lot more cheaper than veterinarian school. But he was never really sad about not making it as a veterinarian, for he had found his own joy and peace from becoming a barber, even though he wanted to become a veterinarian. So now they're walking after they were in the barber shop, and we see 22 really enjoying herself, but Joe wants her to hurry up so that they're not late. Then we see her hat fly away, and then she ends up bending over to pick it up, and then she ends up ripping Joe's pants, revealing his Jalen Hurts. So now he has to go to his mom's shop, which he really doesn't want to go to because his mom would get mad at him, still thinking that gigs are useless compared to a real job. So now they have to go through the subway and head to the shop. When they enter, we hear Joe's mom call him immediately. And right before he walks in, Melba reminds him to kiss her on her cheek, and that message didn't really cross clear for 22. So she just falls on kissing her on the mouth, but then we see him enter the room. It gets mad quiet, and now we see the rising tension. His mom really cuts into him, and Joe, or for better words 22 mimicking Joe, I think this is one of the best speeches ever made in Pixar history.
I can't be truthful with you, because it seems like no matter what I do, you disapprove.
Look, I know you love playing.
Then how come except for church, you're the happiest when I don't? I finally land the gig of my life and you're upset.
You didn't see how tough being a musician was on your father. I don't want to see you struggle like that.
So Dad could pursue his dreams and I can't?
Your father had me. Most times this shop is what paid the bills. So when I'm gone, who's gonna pay yours?
Music is all I think about. From the moment I wake up in the morning to the moment I fall asleep at night.
You can't eat dreams for breakfast, Joey.
Then I don't want to eat. This isn't about my career, Mom. It's my reason for living. And I know Dad felt the same way.
Then his mom pulls out his dad's suit, and now he's fly and ready for the gig. And as they're waiting outside for Moonwind, we see 22 looking around, enjoying life. When Joe asks about 22's experience on Earth, she reminisces about her experiences at the barbershop, his mom's shop, and the subway. Then 22 says that her spark might just be looking at the sky or walking. And Joe says that is just regular old living. Moon ends up arriving, and now we see 22 has changed her mind, and now she wants to figure out her spark, and Joe is not trying to hear that. And in typical fashion, she becomes difficult at the end. But while Joe was chasing 22, they both get caught by Terry. Then we see 22 get her Earth Pass, finding her spark. But Joe is angry and bitter because he thinks since she was in his body that she gained her spark from him, and it wasn't from a deeper connection to her own soul because she was in his body. They argue and bicker back and forth, and then we see her throw her Earth Pass at him and storms off. And then we see the infamous clip.
I have to ask, how the dickens did you do it? Get that Earth Pass to change?
Oh, you know what? I just let her walk a mile in my shoes, you could say.
Well, it worked.
Yeah.
Well, you should probably get going to the great beyond.
Hey, we never found out what 22's purpose was.
Excuse me?
You know, her spark. Purpose. Was it music, biology, walking?
We don't assign purposes. Where did you get that idea?
Because I have piano. It's what I was born to do. That's my spark.
A spark isn't a soul's purpose. Oh, you mentors and your passions, your purposes, your meanings of life. So basic.
No, it...
Then we see 22 walk off into the zone, and then Joe makes it to his gig. After a little convincing, he ends up getting his spot, and then we just see Joe Gardner flow. He really was just in his bag and lands a permanent spot on the quartet. When he finishes, he walks his mother to a taxi, and this is what he's been dreaming of, yet it feels a lot more emptier for Joe. Then we get another clip from Dorothea Williams.
What's wrong, Teach?
It's just, I've been waiting on this day for my entire life. I thought I'd feel different.
I heard this story about a fish. He swims up to this older fish and says, I'm trying to find this thing they call the ocean. The ocean, says the older fish, that's what you're in right now. This, says the young fish, this is water. What I want is the ocean.
He ends up going home, and then he starts to reminisce not only about the day, but about his whole life. The big and small moments, everything. Capturing it in a song, making him shed a tear. But, you know, not to intrude and make this moment a lot less serious, but god damn, this nigga got a yam. He ends up realizing his mistake, and then he goes to the zone and meets Moonwind. And then he figures out that 22 has become a lost soul. Then we see 22 eat Joe. We see all of Soul 22's internal turmoil. Of all the failed mentors, all the anxiety, saying she's never felt that she was ever good enough to live life. And Joe helps her find her spark, which is just regular old living. She ends up coming back, and then we see them both hold hands as they both jump off to Earth. And this should just be something to me, man. But as they fall, we slowly see Joe get pulled back. And now we see that he's about to go into the great beyond. But before he dies, Jerry basically gives him another life, successfully evading Terry. With the end of the movie, Joe says he will live the rest of his days being more grateful and appreciative of life. Now, Soul was a movie about life, and I think the reason why it resonates with me so well is the fact that it really highlights the small moments in life, not just the big moments. If I were to give this movie a motto, it would definitely be, life is about the journey. In life, it's so easy to get lost in the pursuit of dreams, but you really have to understand that purpose isn't everything in life. It's also about the time you spent playing games with your bros, watching your favorite YouTuber, playing basketball with your best friend. Life is a culmination of moments that to most might just be seen as regular old living, but to you, it meant the world. Well, what up, JE Squad? You know, I mean, it's been a minute. Like, I mean, I plan on never taking a 4-month hiatus like that again. But I hope y'all enjoyed the video, and I pray that I'm able to drop the next video next week. But, you know what I mean? I hope that all of y'all have a good week, get some good eats, and nothing more to say. JE out.